Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, April 30th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 122 days, the game against Michigan in 213 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. Joined by Tony Gerdeman here inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Just got a chance to talk to Ryan Day, a sort of surprise bonus press conference, bonus coverage as they call it around here. So we got a chance to talk to him, and a lot of stuff to talking about NFL draft, transfer portal additions, and we'll get to both of those things. But the first thing that I thought, oh, all right, we got a little bit real interesting detail here, was about the quarterback battle. And it started with, Ryan, do you know who your quarterback's going to be? He said no. So I was like, all right, well, that was the answer you'd expect. However, then he went on to provide a little bit of detail about how that quarterback battle had actually sort of shaken out over the course of the spring.
Yeah, he said before the spring game, heading into the spring game, he thought maybe Lincoln Keenholz was a little bit of ahead, but then Julian Sain had the better spring game, and then he's like, so there you go. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is very similar to the Devin Brown, Kyle McCord thing, where we'd hear 1 week it's Devin, 1 week it's Kyle McCord. Towards the end, it was Devin Brown, and Kyle McCord came in and swept through and won that one. And so it was just interesting to hear him admit that, yeah, I would say one guy was ahead, but then the other guy came in and had a good game or a good practice, and so there's no reason, or there's no necessarily leader that he wanted to give at this point. He said clearly the job is still wide open. Yeah. And I also like I think it's Stephen Means from Cleveland.com asked, do you need to know somebody sooner because of the Texas game? He said no, because it's still a season-defining, quest. It's a long season, so it's more than just one game. They want to make sure they make the right guy, the right pick, not just the first pick.
And I thought it was interesting that you heard Keenholz early and then Sain in the spring game, because that kind of broadly aligned with what we were seeing when we were in practice.
It's good to have that confirmed, right?
Yeah.
We do know what we're seeing.
Well, but we're also in for 5 of 15 practices, so what's happening in the other 10, you can talk to people, but your mileage may vary on the answers that you get there.
Yeah, it was just good feedback to know, like, okay, so what we were seeing was basically realistic. This is not, we weren't just there for outlier days. What we saw was like, Lincoln looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And clearly that's what Ryan Day had asserted and said. And then, again, you got to do it every day. And that's why this is going to be a competition and a talking point all through. If we're no longer talking about the quarterback battle after the Texas game, hallelujah for Buckeye fans.
Oh, yeah. Unquestionably, that is the best possible case scenario, because think about the years when the quarterback battle has dragged on into the season. That has generally not been a good thing. I mean, 2023, it sort of dragged on a little bit into the season. You go back to 2015, it dragged on into the season. It sort of served as a distraction. 2004, there was a Texas game involved that year in the Horseshoe. The last time Texas came to the Horseshoe, that was a little bit of a quarterback uncertainty thing. And right now, he didn't say this, but I think based on the way he's talking about things, this is very clearly not we have 2 guys who are definitely 100% national championship ready right now. It is, you got 2 guys who are sort of working towards where they need to be, but aren't there yet in probably multiple areas.
He explained it in a really good way, too, because he's talking about how football is the only sport where you can't play games all year long. Like, you can't play games in practice. In basketball, you can play games. Lacrosse, you can play games. Baseball, you can go play games. Softball, whatever. But you can't do that in football. You can't just go 11 on 11 and play. You can only do what you can do. He's like, we've done, virtual reality doesn't really, doesn't simulate anything, but it's just an interesting thing for not just a quarterback, basically any football player, but especially a quarterback, where you only do the thing that you do so many times. Whereas a basketball player, like AAU, you're going to play like 4 games a day. Like basketball players are going to play, a point guard is going to play 2,000 games in their lifetimes, and a college, a quarterback is going to play, I don't know, maybe 100 or whatever, like less than that if you only play like 3 years in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hockey, for example. My son plays hockey. He'll play 40, 50 games, and he's in 10U, 12U. I mean, this is not like AAA super mega high level. Those kids are playing 70 games, 80 games. So yeah, to be a quarterback and only have this limited window, you wonder. He said that, and then I thought, I wonder if that means the spring game counts a little bit extra because it's a little bit closer to what the final product looks like. he talked about a study he did in terms of this was something he did a while back, and I really appreciated the fact that all of his references in there were to like movies and guys from our area. Talking about Reggie Jackson and
more people need to do this.
The movie The Natural. It's like good. I don't need anything, Air Bud 4. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're referencing early '80s. This is when time stopped. He talked about the fact that it's not, when you look at performances in clutch moments, big moments, it's generally not that guys are playing so much better in that moment. It's just that they're not shrinking in that moment. So that's something, he did a study on that. That's what he found. Very clearly, this is what he believes. So you would think that you would probably put a little bit of extra emphasis on those big moments, but, how much you put your finger on the scale for that, we don't know.
Well, and like you said, it's just falling back to the level of your training, which is not the first time we've heard that. We've heard that over the years here, and he said basically, if you just play your average game in the big games, you're going to be playing better than others because other players will wilt. So basically, just prepare for it, and as long as you're confident and you know what you're doing, then there's less pressure. But it is interesting. He's like, The Natural, like Roy Hobbs, that's just a movie. Like that's not actually how it went for him. And I assume if I go on wiki Roy Hobbs right now, he's probably like, he had to work a lot. Like he had to do a lot Like
there's a book. There's a book. It wasn't. The movie was based on the book, but didn't follow it exactly. Yeah.
But you don't really make saves. You don't just get out of bed and run. It is interesting that because we always talk about gamers this and gamers that. And he's like, I don't buy it.
Yeah, not exactly. So, all right. So that was the update on the quarterbacks. Now let's move on to the transfer portal, which is another thing that folks I know have a lot of interest in. Let's talk first about the big name that came in. That's defensive end Bo Atkinson. This is one of these great press conference moments where he gets it. Ryan Day, first question at the press conference, he gets asked about Bo Atkinson, and he looks back to the compliance guy in the back, like, we got cleared to talk about him, right? I can do this, where we've filed the correct paperwork, and the answer came back yes. So we did get to hear Ryan Day's thoughts on new to Ohio State defensive end Bo Atkinson.
Yeah, does it shock you that he's talking about how, great kid, great meeting the parents and the family and all of that, and everybody's like happy to be here, and what he said about Bo Atkinson is he just wants to play at the highest level. Wants to play at the highest level of college football. And so now he's here at Ohio State getting ready to do that, and it's always about fit and fit first, talent, basically clearly you've got to have the talent to get into the thought process. But if you are not the right fit, for the culture or whatever, it's probably not going to happen for you. And it sounds like everybody is thrilled with this, including his new teammates.
Yeah, including his new teammates. He also said there was a connection right away because Bo Atkinson's mom is from New Hampshire, as is Ryan Day. There are not a lot of New Hampshireites in college football. You know a lot of their names, Dan Mullen and Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, but not a lot of them. He said both of his parents went to UConn, apparently. So Jim Mora taking the L there. That's what the L in Jim L. Mora stands for.
There you go.
All right, so that's Bo Atkinson. Now on to the other half of the transfer portal, which is, this is really complicated. First, the good news, no scholarship players left. They did have 4 walk-on guys leave. He provided a little bit of context around that, and a lot of this went back to a question that you asked that we've talked about on a couple shows recently involving the house settlement and what the judge is going to decide and what that all means for college football programs.
Yeah, some real-life tangible things, that the real-life effect of that. We talk about the house settlement, and a lot of people are probably like, enough with this.
This is a very eat your vegetables thing.
Right.
Like, I know you don't want to hear it, but this matters, and this is going to be consequential, so you got to kind of be patient.
And here's how it impacted Ohio State this year, is that the agreement that everybody thought was going to be 105 scholarships. So when Ryan Day is talking to all of their players, and you got to be extremely honest with them, saying, because Ohio State had 105 players on the spring roster. They're bringing in 5 more freshmen and 3 more transfers, or 2 or 3 more transfers, and they're still looking. But basically, I had to tell people, I don't know that I'm going to have a spot for you in the fall. And so know that. Feel free to stay for now, or but I don't know. I can't promise you a spot here. And so those are the conversations they had with basically the guys that needed to have that conversation. And so they lost 4 walk-ons to the portal. And now the thing is, the judge in the House case is like, no, the 105 is not going to work because you are harming players who did nothing wrong. 4 players, those 4 walk-ons, would be considered harmed because they weren't guaranteed a spot that they have had for a while now. So this is just a real life example of what coaches are having to go through right now, trying to maneuver through this thing. And then, as I asked Ryan Day, so you're probably they're gonna have more than 105. It's like they'll deal with it as it happens, but they'd like to be back to 120, 121. He said, with 90 scholarships, and so he's like, we'll see. Basically, like it's things are maneuvering, and you try to keep up, and that has been every year he's been at Ohio State, like, especially as a head coach. Like the only normal year he had was maybe 2019. Like there's always something going on with that guy in the sport.
Speaking of early 80s movies, he said 120, 121, and I thought Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom, wiring up the dryer.
That's very early.
That is very early. Yes. Well, we have our window of time. The only other thing that I had that was really kind of a consequential thing is the offensive line, where things stand on the offensive line, because there's a lot of spots being replaced there, and there's a little bit of a question in terms of how those different pieces are going to fit together. What did he have to say about where things stand? I think he was specifically asked about the right tackle position, but the whole defensive offensive line. Yeah,
well, everything's going well there. Everybody's progressing. I thought the most interesting thing out of that, as he was asked about right tackle, and he's like, well, that's still to be decided. I'm not going to name any starters right now. Austin Searvald's going to be starting on the offensive line. So it's like, so take that for what it's worth.
Right. Yeah.
Like I don't know if Austin, because Austin Searvald, you guys know, went left tackle, left guard, right tackle, right guard, worked almost everywhere and did very well. Like they liked everything he did, and it's like I don't know who's going to be starting at right tackle, but I know Austin Searvald's going to be in this lineup somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean they always approach this as a best five, and so if you feel like this guy is definitely one of our top three, there's not a question that he's going to be among that best five, and with the positional versatility that he has, you can shuffle the other pieces around as make fit.
To feel that good about a redshirt sophomore has got to be a great feeling for a coach.
Well, and he is someone who, they only had 3 Iron Buckeyes this spring, and Austin Searvald was one of them. So that's someone who is obviously very well respected by the coaching staff, very well respected by the team, but also who's putting in the work, and also who has the track record based on last year of, hey, this guy is a guy who can do it in these big moments, in the kind of college football playoff kind of pressure moments. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing. Anything else that you thought we need to cover before we wrap this up?
No, I think we touched base. Everybody, he likes what somebody, I think it was Pat Murphy, asked him about. You mentioned the weapons on offense, like the different ways that you can use them. He's like, well, you consider we've got the tight ends, which is the deepest and the best he's ever had at Ohio State. Different types of receivers, which is interesting. We got some different kinds of, as you know, like Brandon Innes and that, and then the depth at running back is going to be greater than anything they've had. So there are just some different things that they can do offensively. That is, that's some of the things they do in the summer, is to devise all of these things defensively as well, with Matt Patricia trying to figure out how to use all of these 18 defensive linemen that Ryan Day talked about, mostly just those 5 defensive ends that they've got now, and whatever they can find on the interior. The last thing, though, Tom, when he talked about how good the offensive line was looking, and he's like, but I still wonder, talking about the interior, like what they would look like if Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton were working against them. And that is going to be a question that stands around, is there until the Texas game.
Yeah, that is a question that will get answered in, what was it, 122 days, I believe, at the start of the show.
Not my gimmick.
So, yeah. It is Ryan Day's gimmick. That Texas game seems to come up every time we talk to Ryan Day, so definitely something that is on the forefront of the minds of the folks inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. There's a lot on the forefront of the minds of us at BuckeyeHuddle.com right now, because we got this to talk about. We got a lot of exciting positional battles, a quarterback race to talk about. It is also Southern Swing. Mark Gifler and Kevin Noon on the road right now, crisscrossing the South, talk to all sorts of top prospects all across the nation. Lots of really elite players who are all, if they're talking to them, they are folks who are interested in Ohio State, and you're going to get some direct answers about Ohio State from all of them. So that is going to be they're going to have a lot of coverage from that coming up in the next few weeks, and we'll have plenty more coming for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting, and we have our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well, all to make you a smarter football fan. That is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.